2:47 p.m., September 2nd, 2025. A four-engine speedboat cuts through the southern Caribbean waters, loaded with Tren de Aragua operatives and tons of narcotics worth millions. The vessel had just departed Venezuelan waters, heading directly toward U.S. territory with a cargo that would fuel the overdose crisis, killing over 100,000 Americans annually. This wasn't just another drug run. It was a direct challenge to America's new zero-tolerance policy against narco-terrorism. But what happened next sent shockwaves through every cartel hideout from Caracas to Chicago. In 60 seconds, 11 Tren de Aragua operatives were eliminated in what President Trump called a precision strike. This is the real story of Operation Caribbean Thunder, the first lethal U.S. military action against cartels in decades, and the opening shot in what experts are calling a new war on narco-terrorism. Welcome to Mind of the World. I'm your host, and today we're breaking down the classified details of how U.S. forces tracked, targeted, and eliminated one of the most dangerous criminal organizations on Earth. This isn't Hollywood. This isn't fiction. This is the documented reality of modern warfare against transnational criminal organizations. The Tren de Aragua threat. To understand why this operation was so significant, you need to know exactly what Tren de Aragua represents. This isn't just another drug cartel. Born in Venezuela's notorious Tocaron prison, Tren de Aragua has evolved into what U.S. intelligence agencies classify as a foreign terrorist organization, the same designation given to ISIS and Al-Qaeda. The numbers are staggering. Tren de Aragua controls drug trafficking routes generating over $2 billion annually. They operate in 17 countries across Latin America and have established cells in major U.S. cities including New York, Chicago, Miami, and Denver. Unlike traditional cartels focused solely on drugs, Tren de Aragua runs a full-spectrum criminal enterprise involving human trafficking, kidnapping, extortion, and assassination services. What makes them particularly dangerous is their military-style organization. Many members are former Venezuelan military personnel with combat training and access to military-grade weapons. They operate with the implicit protection of the Maduro regime in Venezuela, using the country as a safe haven for their operations. U.S. intelligence estimates they're responsible for over 1,000 murders across multiple countries, with their violence increasingly spilling into American communities. The breaking point came in early 2025 when Tren de Aragua operatives were linked to a series of brutal murders in Colorado and New York. The message was clear. They weren't just smuggling drugs anymore. They were bringing their reign of terror directly to American soil. The military buildup. The operation that would unfold on September 2nd didn't happen overnight. It was the culmination of a massive military buildup that began in August 2025, when President Trump signed a classified directive authorizing lethal force against cartel targets designated as terrorist organizations. Within days, the Pentagon deployed over 4,000 Marines and sailors to Caribbean waters as part of what defense officials called the most significant counter-narcotics military operation in decades. 8 warships, including destroyers and amphibious assault vessels, took positions throughout the Caribbean. Advanced surveillance aircraft began 24/7 monitoring of Venezuelan coastal waters, while satellites tracked suspicious vessel movements in real time. The rules of engagement were unprecedented. For the first time since the 1980s, U.S. military forces were authorized to use lethal force against drug traffickers in international waters. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth made the policy clear in classified briefings. Any vessel departing Venezuela with suspected narcotics would be considered a legitimate military target. The intelligence apparatus was equally impressive. NSA signals intelligence monitored cartel communications, while DEA assets in the region provided real-time human intelligence. Special Operations Command coordinated with naval forces to ensure precise targeting capabilities. The message was unmistakable. The United States was treating cartel operations as acts of war. By late August, U.S. forces had established what military planners called a kill box, a designated area where any suspicious vessel could be engaged with lethal force. The trap was set. It was only a matter of time before Tren de Aragua would walk into it. At 1:15 p.m. on September 2nd, 2025, U.S. surveillance assets detected a high-speed vessel departing the Venezuelan coast near Puerto Cabello. Satellite imagery immediately confirmed suspicious characteristics. 4 powerful engines capable of outrunning Coast Guard cutters, suspicious cargo configuration, and a direct heading toward known drug trafficking routes. Within minutes, the vessel was designated as a target of interest. NSA intercepts confirmed communications patterns consistent with drug trafficking operations, while thermal imaging revealed multiple individuals aboard. The decision chain moved with lethal efficiency, from field commanders to the Pentagon to the White House in less than 30 minutes. President Trump personally authorized the strike. The official Pentagon statement would later read, "At approximately 14:47 hours, U.S. forces conducted a precision strike against a suspected drug trafficking vessel in international waters." But the clinical language doesn't capture the reality of what happened next. The Tren de Aragua operatives never saw it coming. They believed they were invisible, protected by speed and the vast expanse of the Caribbean. They were catastrophically wrong. At 2:47 p.m., U.S. naval forces engaged the target with what Pentagon sources describe as overwhelming firepower. The strike was captured on high-definition military video that would later be released by President Trump himself. The 4-engine speedboat, along with its cargo of narcotics and 11 Tren de Aragua operatives, was completely destroyed in seconds. There were no survivors, no rescue operations, no prisoners. The message was as clear as it was final. The era of impunity for narco-terrorists was over. The immediate aftermath, the international reaction was swift and explosive. President Trump announced the successful operation from the White House, posting the strike video on social media with a stark warning. Please let this serve as notice to anybody even thinking about bringing drugs into the United States of America. Beware. Venezuelan President Maduro condemned the action as state terrorism and an act of war, but his protests rang hollow. The international community largely supported the U.S. action, with Colombian and Peruvian officials privately expressing satisfaction that someone was finally taking decisive action against Tren de Aragua. More significantly, the operation sent shockwaves through the global criminal underworld. Within hours, intelligence agencies reported a dramatic decrease in drug trafficking activity throughout the Caribbean. Other major cartels, including the Sinaloa Cartel and Jalisco New Generation Cartel, reportedly suspended maritime operations pending assessment of the new U.S. rules of engagement. Defense Secretary Hegseth made it clear this was just the beginning. In a Pentagon briefing, he stated, "The U.S. military will continue to hit drug cartels. We've got assets in the air, assets in the water, and we will continue to target transnational criminal organizations that threaten American security." The legal precedent was equally significant. For the first time in decades, the United States had used military force against drug traffickers, treating them not as criminals, but as enemy combatants. Legal experts noted this represented a fundamental shift in U.S. counter-narcotics strategy. Long-term implications and conclusion. Operation Caribbean Thunder represents more than just the elimination of 11 narco-terrorists. It marks the beginning of a new era in the war on drugs, one where cartels face the full military might of the United States rather than just law enforcement action. The strategic implications are profound. Cartels can no longer assume safe passage through international waters. They cannot rely on speed or sophisticated equipment to evade U.S. forces. Most importantly, they now understand that the United States considers their operations acts of terrorism worthy of military response. Intelligence analysts predict this operation will force cartels to fundamentally alter their operational methods. Maritime trafficking routes through the Caribbean, responsible for approximately 70% of cocaine entering the United States, are now extremely high risk. This could drive up drug prices while simultaneously reducing supply, potentially saving thousands of American lives. However, experts also warn of potential escalation. Cartels may respond with increased violence, targeting U.S. interests in Latin America or American citizens abroad. The delicate balance of regional diplomacy has been altered, with some allies expressing concern about U.S. military action in their sphere of influence. What remains clear is that the rules of the game have fundamentally changed. Tren de Aragua learned this lesson the hard way on September 2, 2025. Other cartels are watching, calculating, and preparing for what man experts believe will be an expanded campaign of military action against narco-terrorist organizations. This is just the beginning. As Defense Secretary Hegseth promised, more operations are coming. The question isn't whether the U.S. will strike again. It's when and where. For the cartels, the age of impunity is over. For America, a new chapter in the war on drugs has begun. If this analysis opened your eyes to the realities of modern counter-narcotics warfare, make sure to subscribe to Mind of the World for continued coverage of military operations you won't find anywhere else. The battle against narco-terrorism is far from over, and we'll be here to bring you every development as it happens.